Okay. So let me introduce myself first. So my name is Prasad. I have 18 years of work experience working as an architect. Okay. I've been teaching from past 10 years. So I teach .NET, DevOps, AWS, Azure, Python, all that. Fine. Okay. So before we get into the demo, I want you to introduce yourself first of all. Okay. I'll start with offline. I'm seeing 4 of them here and 4 online. Okay, yeah, please introduce yourself.
I recently completed my course in Java full stack in Akshara Softwares solutions.
Yep, good. Good. So,
And I'm very sorry to be really upset myself, but Akshara company and validation dates are followed in the year 2023.
okay. So, are you from any Java background or something? Okay, you have done it. Okay, okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, good. Yeah, that's okay. No problem. Okay, Syed, your introduction, please.
A very good afternoon to all. Myself Syed Akram. I am from Palamner, Andhra Pradesh. Recently, I completed engineering in Mother Teresa Institute of Engineering, 2024 password batch. Till now, I didn't started any technical courses.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Durga.
Yeah, hi everyone. Myself Durga. I am from Nellore, Andhra Pradesh. I have 5 years of IT experience in Power BI domain. Currently, I am working as a Power BI developer in Flatworld Solutions, Bangalore location. And I took Power BI course in Akshara Software, so I'm interested to learn .NET.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. Yeah, Shivakeshava. Shivakeshava, can you hear me? Okay, that's fine. Sumbul.
Uh, uh, Hello. Hello all. Good afternoon. I'm Sumbul. I am residing in Bangalore. Currently, I'm not working, and I'm willing to join, start the job. So I have joined this course.
Okay, you are interested in which course? Is it for .NET or testing? Selenium.
Yeah, I am interested in Selenium. Yeah.
Selenium. Okay, no problem. Yeah, Shivraj.
Sir, I'm Suraj, sir. I'm from Bangalore. I am working currently in a mechanical company, sir, Voltas. I have experience of 2 years in mechanical company, sir. I am looking to shift to IT domain, sir.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Vamshi. Okay, he left again. Vaishnavi.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. This is Vaishnavi from Kadapa district, Andhra Pradesh.
Yeah, Vaishnavi, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Sir, I'm recently joined. What you asked, I don't know, sir. Please again.
That's fine. I'm just requesting the introduction of yours. I just need to know like your background and any experience details.
No experience, sir. I am recently passed out, sir. My background civil engineering, sir.
Okay, no problem, no problem. Yeah, Sanvita.
Yeah, hi sir. This is Sanvita from Andhra. I worked as Python developer in Digital Green. I'm having 3.3 years experience.
Okay.
Currently, I'm not working, sir. I want a domain as testing.
Testing, is it?
No, yes, sir. No, I'm interested in Selenium testing.
Okay, understood. Okay, so few of you are looking for Selenium, but not all. Majority are for .NET actually. Okay, I'll start with .NET. In the end, we'll try to make you understand even about Selenium as well. But even for Selenium, definitely you need to understand C#. So everyone must understand the basics of .NET. Okay, so majority of the demo will be on .NET today. Okay, so in the end, anyway, we'll be covering even the Selenium as well. Fine. Okay, so let's share my screen. Before I start the demo, I will be using few technical terms in this demo. I just want you to explain that. First of all, I just want to know if someone can explain what is an application. What is an application? Why do we need to develop an application? Most of you mentioned like you are from Java background, all that, right? So what is an application? Anyone experience, guys? Don't think that why first question only is asking instead of demoing it, okay? Because that's a basic, right? That is why we are here. Correct? To develop an application, you are learning either whether it is a .NET or .Java or whatever. To develop an application, we are here. Correct, right? Now, for example, let's say Amazon.com is one application. Flipkart.com is one application. That is a web application. I'll come to the difference between like what is web, Windows, console, all that I'll explain. But it's an application. So in any application, there will be some user interface. Am I correct? User interface meaning what? User is interacting with that particular application. It will display some information using that application. You will also input some details using that particular application. We develop these applications for some clients. Am I correct? Okay, for some clients. It can be, for example, if someone is actually reaching out to you saying that I need to develop an e-commerce application. What is an e-commerce application generally? By using this application, you sell some items. Now, Amazon.com, again, it's an e-commerce application. Correct, right? Like that, there can be, let's say there is one hospital management application, or it can be a school management application. Anything for us would be an application. Am I correct? For that, we are learning all these technologies. It can be anything, does not matter. Okay, someone discussed about Selenium, someone discussed about they learned Python. Whether it is a Python or .NET or Java, anything does not matter. Everyone will be working for an application. Yes or no? Now, who developed that an application? First of all, developer. Now, what is development? What is development?
Can build some logics.
How? I am not asking what to say, rocket science questions. It's all simple questions. Am I correct? Yeah? Have you ever thought about it? Because we should start from there. Yes or no? Okay. So what is development? Development meaning you get some requirement, some client, your client, and for that requirement, you write some code and make it work in the developer system is called development. Simple, right? You're taking requirement from the client. Client is expecting this is what I need in my application. For that, you are writing some code. Again, irrespective of the technology, can be Java, can be .NET, it can be anything, does not matter. Yes or no? So that is development. Now, what is deployment? What is deployment?
Sir, transferring from development to client, sir. Deploy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you are almost there. So it's not transferring. It's like in the
Publishing
server.
the output.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Publishing.
Publishing. Exactly. So, yeah. So your application is working in the developer system. Now you wish to make that application work in some other system. It can be anything. I mean, it's not only to the client. There are different environments. We'll cover that later. So making the application work in some other system or a server or set of servers is actually called deployment. What is the difference between system and a server? This is how you should understand. I mentioned system and server. System meaning it will have less configuration. It will not be accessible to many people. Server meaning it will have like required configuration higher than your system configuration, and it can be used by multiple people. Whoever is trying to access that application, they will have access to that particular server. Generally, you don't deploy your application in only one server. In multiple servers, you will be deploying. But just copying the files from your system to that system is not sufficient. Getting the point? Just copying the files from your system to that system is not sufficient. You'll have to configure that particular system. Configure meaning, let's say you are developing an application by using .Net. You need to install .Net in that system. Yes or no? Then you may need to provide some permissions. Then the copying the files from your system to that system and making it work in that particular system is actually called deployment. Understood? So any application for that matter, it can be Java, it can be .NET, it can be Python, does not matter. You will be deploying it. Okay. Once it gets deployed only, even these testers will be testing it. Yes or no? Because if the application is there in your system, how do they test it? It has to be deployed somewhere. Then only they can test it. Understood? Okay. Now if we understood the basics first of all, fine. Now let us try to understand what is .NET. What is .NET? Okay. .NET is actually a framework by using which you can develop, deploy, console, Windows and web applications. There are other services also. I'll cover that later. But .NET is a framework by using which you can develop, deploy, console, Windows and web applications. Okay, let me write down that. Let's break that definition and try to understand each one of them. It's a framework, I said. So, which is to develop, deploy, console, Windows and web applications. Now, what is console? You know what is develop, what is deploy. I don't need to mention again. We just understood. Am I correct? Now I am saying using .NET, you can develop and deploy what? Console, Windows and web applications. Is this clear? Fine. Now what is console is the question. And you know what is an application. I don't need to explain. Fine. Console meaning it is a user interface. It is a user interface, but it's a character user interface. Character user interface. So you go to command prompt, you get this right. This is my console. For example, here I can say, enter your name. Application is saying, think in that way. Now user can enter the name. Understood? So it is a character user interface, meaning you can only interact by using the characters. It is not a graphical user interface. Graphical meaning what? You can see the pictures, the buttons, the labels. Getting the point? Okay, that would be a graphical user interface. You see a registration form, login form, all that, right? Those are all graphical user interfaces. But this is not a graphical user interface. This is a character user interface. Now the question is, why do I need this? Whenever you are learning any technology or any concept, it is always important to understand why is it required. Now, why should I develop a console application? For background processing applications, we develop console applications. Now the question is, what is a background processing applications? Let's say I have an Excel sheet. That Excel sheet has some data. That particular data I wish to insert in the database. Every day I am getting that particular data from that Excel sheet. Now, what is the bare minimum input I needed from the user? Tell me. User is trying to use this application to upload the data into the database. Now, what is database? What is database? Yeah. Why do you need database? For storage. Correct, right? So you heard about SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, n number of database names, right? PostgreSQL, all that, right? So why do I need it? This is to store your application data. What is application data? For example, let's say I am developing an e-commerce application. Now, when you say e-commerce application, you are trying to register the users and user is able to log in all that. Now, where are you storing that data? In the database. But there are different types of databases. We'll understand that later. Okay, but as part of this particular course, you will be learning something like MS SQL Server. That means Microsoft SQL Server. I'm talking about .NET days. Okay, that is a database. Now you are storing the data into the database. Now, what is the bare minimum input I needed from the user is the path of the file. Where exactly that file resides. Am I correct? It's an Excel sheet. It contains some data. Where is that path? I need that particular path. That I can enter here. I don't need graphical user interface for that. Then internally I'll write the program to extract the data from that Excel and insert into the database or update into the database. Yes or no? So to do that, I need only basic input. Even sometimes, let's say you are already, already there is a folder, always you get the file from that particular folder that can be hard coded and I can schedule this particular schedule, meaning what? Every day 12 o'clock it should run. Every day 1 o'clock it should run, or every 10 minutes it should run. Like that I can schedule it. So I can schedule by using something like Task Manager if it is a Windows task scheduler using this one. So I can have an executable file and I can add that particular executable file over here. Then it can run. Understood? Okay. I'm not trying to show you how to do it. We'll understand all that later. But to do that, we need a console application. Are you getting the point? To do that, we need a console application. Fine. The next one is Windows application. Windows application. Now, what is Windows meaning? It's a graphical user interface. Graphical user interface, meaning, let's say this you take this example of the PowerPoint one only. See, by clicking on that, you know what will happen, right? It's a new slide, right? Am I correct? This is insert, this is draw, this is design. So this is a graphical user interface. I'm not saying to develop PowerPoint we need .NET. Are you getting the point? I'm just trying to explain you what is graphical user interface. But you can develop Windows applications by using .NET. Understood? The very good example for that would be you go to supermarket. They'll use one kind of application, right? It will not be running in the browser. It just runs only in their system, not anywhere else. Such kind of application, but is it a graphical user interface? They'll be using like calculators, they'll be scanning all that they'll be doing, right? Correct? So that is actually a GUI. It's a Windows application. So, but it runs only in that system, not anywhere else. And at one point of time, only one person can use that particular application, not multiple users. If you wish to use it in your system, you will have to install that in your system also. Understood? So then console also same thing. To run the console application, you need to install .NET, and also this executable should be available in your system. Then only you can run that application in your system. But web applications are also GUI. Windows also GUI. But then what is the difference? The difference is, what do you mean by client server? Then server meaning? Then think about it. Okay, no problem. So she mentioned about client server architecture. Server meaning wherever you are deploying your application, that becomes a server. Client meaning the browser. Browser is a client for you. Correct, right? So web applications are shared applications. That is very important. Shared applications. Shared meaning? Exactly. It is available to everyone. Multiple users can use at a time. Understood? You can use it, I can use it, anyone can use it. Gmail.com is a web application. Amazon.com is a web application. You can use it, I can use it, anyone can use it. But where are you running this? In a browser. Any application which you are running with the help of browser, that becomes a web application. Understood? Okay, now these web applications are shared applications because it is used by multiple people at the same time, I am saying. And it will not be deployed in the same system wherever you are running it. For example, Amazon.com is not installed in your system, right? It is deployed somewhere else and you are just accessing it. But Windows and console are not like that. It has to be there in that system. Understood? Okay. Now, for that, you need to have a different infrastructure for web applications. You need something like IaaS and all. We'll understand that later. That we also call it as web server as well. So directly, you can't keep the files over there. You have to have something like IaaS, Internet Information Services. Using that only, you'll be deploying your applications. IaaS works in Windows servers, but not in the Linux servers. Linux servers handling is little different. Okay, I'm talking about deployment. Okay, that's fine. Now you know. Okay, before that, I'll also explain. I'll show you just difference between this. This is a calculator. There, here also I'll get a calculator. Yeah, I'm getting calculator here. I also have a calculator here. What is the difference between this and this? In both the places, I can actually say like 2 plus 2 I'll get here. I'll also get it there also. But what's the difference? Which one? Which one is? This one. Yeah, it is available only in my system. You can't use this. So this is Windows. Getting the point? But which is web? This is web application. Understood? That's the difference between Windows and web, but both are GUIs. I'm not denying it. Okay, so that is what you can develop by using .NET. By using .NET. Apart from this web, Windows and console applications, you can also develop something like services. Services. So what is a service is the question. Anyone is aware of it? Service? One second. Okay, now I'll explain what is a service. Service meaning, let's say, you know ICICI website or HDFC, ICICI, anything, right? So that ICICI bank website I can open in my laptop, in my desktop, in the tablet, tab, you know, right? Tab. I can open it in my mobile. In mobile, again, two ways. One way is by using a browser. Second way, app. Correct, right? So now, in all five of them, what is common? What is common and what is not common? What functions? What do you mean by that? Hmm. Hmm. Exactly. Correct, right? So the functionality, like meaning when you say functionality, like data is common. Correct, right? Wherever you go, whether I open it in my mobile device or in my website, the amount will be the same. It doesn't differ. My name will be same. My transaction details are same. Everything is same. But what is not same is only GUI. Yes or no? The way you display the data is different. In mobile app, you might display like the font will be smaller. Correct, right? But in the web application, font will be big. Yes or no? So that means look and feel is different, but the data is the same. Now the question is, to get the data or to update the data, insert the data, delete the data, why should I write 5 times the same code? Are you getting the point? I'm using a mobile application. I'm using a web browser in the same mobile app. And I'm also using my system. For all 5 of them, now let's say you are trying to log in. Now where is your username password? In the database. Correct? All applications should fetch it from the database only. Now you're writing some code for that. Now why should I write code 5 times if the same kind of functionality, or if you are doing it for all 5 of them? If you write, let's say if it is taking like 1 day to get the data, you are writing some code, it is taking 1 day. Now to repeat the same thing in all 5 applications, it takes 5 days. Am I correct? Now the question is, why can't you write once and use it in multiple devices? Are you getting the point? You write once and use the same in all other applications, no? That is why we write services or we develop services. Understood? Heard about APIs? APIs are services. You develop different types of services. There will be like WCF services, SOAP-based services, RESTful services, so many, right? So these are all services. But as part of .NET, you will be learning something like web APIs. Okay, so there is WCF also. It's a old technology. People are not using much because it's not lightweight service. Okay, so but you will be learning APIs. Understood? Okay, now using .NET, you can deploy what? Console, Windows, web, and services. Is this clear? Any questions on this? No, right? Okay. Now, online, any questions on this? Okay, fine. Earlier, .NET, we used to develop or deploy only in Windows systems. Okay. Now, it can be deployed or developed by even using Linux systems. there is something like platform independent. Platform independent. So what is dependent? What do you mean by dependent? It runs only on Windows, not anywhere else. Earlier it used to be like that, but it is not like that now. You can deploy your applications even in Linux. You can develop as well in Linux. Understood? Now, directly .NET you cannot use it. There is something like .NET Core. .NET Core. Using .NET Core, you can able to develop and deploy your applications in Linux as well. It doesn't mean that Windows it will not work. It will work in both. Okay, so that also you will be learning. Initially, you will be learning with .NET. Then after that, you will be using .NET Core. Is this clear? Yeah, fine. Now, how do you develop all this? Is the question. There are multiple languages. .NET supports multiple languages. It supports C#, it supports VB.NET, it supports VC++, it supports J#. Getting the point? So many languages it supports. You can develop console, Windows, or web or services by using any of the languages. But we are very much used to C, right? Most of us learned C in the BTech or MCA, wherever, right? So that is the reason C# will be similar to that. C#. So you will be learning C# as a language. This is important for .NET guys and also for the Selenium guys. Understood? C# will be using it. Okay, fine. Now, whenever we think about .NET, you need to know two things. One is .NET Framework, .NET Framework, and then Visual Studio. Second one is Visual Studio. Now, what is .NET Framework is the question. Correct? I'll explain that in detail. I'll come to that. Before that, let me discuss about Visual Studio, then I'll come to this one. Visual Studio is actually a IDE, Integrated Development Environment. Whoever is from Java background, Eclipse, you know, right? So Eclipse, okay. So here we use Visual Studio, okay, to develop your any of these applications or services. We use Visual Studio. So when you install Visual Studio, that means it's an editor. Essentially, it's a editor. This is your Visual Studio. So when you install it, there are different versions. I have like 22 and 2019. Okay, so you can use the latest one. We'll be learning the latest one only here. Yeah. So now, when you install Visual Studio, .NET Framework also gets installed. .NET Framework also gets installed. Fine. Now the question is, .NET Framework is required for console and Windows applications. See, there is something like development and deployment. To develop all these four, you need Visual Studio and .NET Framework. But to deploy, you need only .NET Framework. Are you getting the point? You need only .NET Framework. You don't need Visual Studio. Correct, right? Now I have a server. In that server, I don't need to I'm deploying in that server. I don't need to install Visual Studio. Only .NET Framework is sufficient over there. Is this clear? Now what is .NET Framework is a question. No. Can someone tell me what is compilation? Why do you need to compile? What do you mean by mission code?
Computer understand.
Computer understands?
Understand language codes.
It's a binary code. Correct, right? See, you are saying something and you are just stopping there. You need to explain more, no? I'm not saying your answer is incorrect. Okay, but anyway, so in a system, generally there will be a processor. Processor can understand only zeros and ones. It cannot understand anything else apart from that. So whatever the code you are writing, for example, in C, you write something like printf, scanf. Am I correct? So that code directly your processor cannot understand. So definitely there has to be something like compiler. That compiler will compile your code to mission understandable language. Then only it can execute. Understood? So when you are using C, it is only one step process. There will be a C language compiler. It will directly compile that particular C code into mission understandable code. But whereas in .NET, it is actually two-step process. It's not only one-step process. It is a two-step process. What do you mean by compilation and what is two-step process here is? I actually mentioned earlier, .NET supports n number of languages. Am I correct? So it supports C#, VB.NET, so many, right? Now let's take an example of C#. And I'm taking one more VB also. VB.NET as well. Okay. Now, each and every language will have its own compiler. C# will have C# language compiler. VB will have VB language compiler. Understood? So now, the duty of that particular compiler is to convert your source code. Source code meaning in the C# you're writing some code. You will convert that into MSIL. What is that? MSIL, Microsoft Intermediate Language. Microsoft Intermediate Language. That is MSIL code. Then, who is converting it? C# language compiler. When you install C# anyway, you'll get to see the compiler also. Okay. Then VB.NET also does the same by using VB.NET compiler. It will convert into MSIL code. It is not directly into native code. That is what I'm trying to say. Native meaning mission understandable language, like you mentioned. Okay. So who does that? Language compiler. Language compiler does that. Then MSIL to mission understandable code. Who does that? This will be your native code. I'm saying native code. There will be something like JIT. What is that? JIT. Just-in-time compiler. You'll see this in Java also, right? Yeah. Just-in-time compiler. Where will be in Java just-in-time compiler? Tell me. JVM. Where JVM will be there in JRE. Don't worry about .NET guys. I'm just saying. So that you'll understand I'm saying. Okay. Fine. So anyway, now in .NET also we have a just-in-time compiler. Now this just-in-time compiler resides something like in CLR. What is that? CLR, Common Language Runtime, we call it as. Common Language Runtime. Understood? So this JIT will be there in the CLR. And where will be this CLR? It will be there in the .NET framework. It will be there in the .NET framework. That is the reason you need .NET framework to develop and deploy your applications. Is this clear? Now, is it only that? No. There is one more component in the CLR, not only the JIT part. There is something like class libraries. Class libraries. Now, what is a class library is the question. You know functions? Functions. So why do you need functions generally? Exactly. To perform one particular task, we need a function. Now, you can have system-defined functions and user-defined functions. Correct, right? Now, printf in C is a system defined functions. Correct, right? System defined function. Now you can also create your own functions. That's fine. Now, have you, in the C language, you write something like hash include stdio.h. Yes or no? Have you ever tried to delete, remove it, and or comment that and try to compile? No. What will happen if you do it? It does not compile. The reason is printf is a function. The definition of that particular printf, it's actually written in the header file of stdio.h. Let's say it can contain like 10 lines code or 15 lines code or whatever. That code exists in that header file. So that is the reason you are including that header file. If you don't include that header file, then from where it should get it? Understand? The same way, even in .NET, these functions and properties reside somewhere in the classes. Somewhere in the classes. These classes will be there somewhere in the DLLs. Dynamic link library, we call it as. Understood? Okay, I would say before DLLs, there will be something like namespaces. This is the hierarchy. First, there will be functions and properties. There are other members also. You'll get to know later. But these functions will be part of classes. These classes would be part of namespaces. This would be part of namespaces. I'll try to compare that with Java also so that you will understand, whoever is from Java background. So then this will be as part of DLLs. These DLLs will be part of class libraries. This class library is actually part of .NET framework. Now inside a class library, you will have DLLs. Inside this DLLs, you'll have namespaces. Inside that namespaces, you'll have classes. Inside that classes, you'll have functions and other properties, other members, I would say. Now, let's say like printf, here also we have something like console.writeLine. WriteLine is a function for me. Console is a class for me. That resides somewhere in system namespace. That system will be there in DLL. So that DLL will be as part of the class library. If I don't use that system, using system, like hash include io.h, here we should be using system, then I cannot execute my WriteLine function. That is the reason I need to have .NET framework in my system. Is this clear? Okay. Yeah. Fine then. So since even Selenium people also joined this particular session, we'll focus on even now Selenium. So now in the .NET, I'll just explain like what and all you will be learning as part of the .NET. Then later on, I'll explain even other details also. So in .NET, you learn C#. Okay, you learn definitely console, Windows web applications, all that is fine. Okay, after that you learn SQL Server. SQL Server, it's a database, right? Okay, so you learn SQL Server. After that, you learn something like ADO.NET. Then you learn ASP.NET. Then you learn something like MVC, Model View Controller. Even in Java, you have it, right? Okay, so Model View Controller. So that you'll be learning. Then you learn something like Web API, which is for services. Okay, so then you learn something like Entity Framework. Then you learn something like Link Queue. Okay, then .NET Core. Why do you need .NET Core? I already explained it. To develop platform independent applications and services, we use .NET Core. Okay, fine. And if we find any one of you is capable of learning even Angular as well, we will make you learn Angular. But for that, you need to prove yourself. Saying in .NET, I am really comfortable. I can develop an applications. There are two things. Learning is different. Practically doing the things is different. You need to develop an application. Getting my point? You need to develop the services. If we feel that yes, you are learning better, now you can able to develop properly, then we will make you learn even Angular as well. Why do you need Angular? Sometimes people develop applications by using MVC or by using Angular. 70% Angular applications are there with .NET. But backend will be .NET only. Front-end people uses Angular. Okay, it's all depends on your performance is what I'm trying to say. Is this clear? Yeah. So that is about the .NET. Okay. Now, definitely Web API and all I already mentioned. Any questions on .NET, anyone, before I move to the other part? And for Selenium, guys, you will be learning the C#. If required, SQL Server. I would prefer MySQL. So it depends on that. Anyway, MySQL and SQL Server more or same. Okay, so you'll be learning those two, but you will not be learning from here. You will not be learning anything else. For Selenium, only that much is sufficient. Then you will be learning Selenium. I'll try to cover in the Selenium what and all you will be learning. Now let's try to understand what about, even though .NET people think that why do I need to learn testing? Everyone should be learning testing. Don't think that you shouldn't be knowing testing. Now tell me what is testing? Can anyone tell me what is testing? What do you mean by testing? Okay. Can you repeat? Okay. You need testing, correct? I will frame it in a different manner. To test the features of an application, not future, F-E-A-T-U-R-E, features of an application. For example, login is one feature, registration is another feature. Okay, to test whether it is working as expected or not, we need testing. Correct, right? Now there are two types of testing. Correct, right? One is functional testing and second one is non-functional testing. Getting the point? Can anyone tell me what is functional testing and non-functional? Any idea? Okay. Functional meaning testing the features. Non-functional meaning, for example, let's say I wish to get the response within 2 seconds. Within 2 seconds. It's a non-functional testing for me. You're requesting it. And it is taking like 5 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever. If it is happening in that way, what will happen? People will not wait. No, we are in competitive market, right? If you are not getting a response within 5 seconds or 10 seconds, if Amazon is not working, what do? You go to Flipkart, no? Or any other competitor, right? Or vice versa, no? So that's a non-functional requirement. Understood? Fine. Let me open one PPT for that. Functional and non-functional. So this is what is functional. Focus on user requirements. Functional testing will be on user requirements. Non-functional meaning expectations. User expectations. That's what I mentioned. Okay. But again, functional testing can be tested by using two ways. One is manual. Second one is automation. Manual meaning what? You get an application. You'll be testing manually. Let's say there is a registration of page. Then what do? You'll insert first name, last name, all that. whether it is working as expected or not, you'll be testing both positive and negative scenarios. You'll be testing it. Then automation meaning I don't want to test manually. I'll write some code. For example, I have a google.com. Now, if I am opening a google.com, so generally to test this google.com, what do we do? You go to browser, you type google.com. Am I correct? Now, if I wish to search like best .NET training in Bangalore, I'm typing it. Getting the point? So this manually I'm typing it. But if I am trying to use automation, script will type it for you. Are you getting the point? It opens a browser automatically. It will type, enter this one, and it also enters it. Then whatever the response you'll get it over here. Are you getting the point? So this is automation. Why do you need automation is we are into agile. We are using agile methodology nowadays. Everyone, it is important for you. Okay. What do you mean by agile? As soon as you get the requirement, you don't directly start coding it. You don't directly start coding it. If you directly start coding it, what will happen? What will happen? You get the requirements from client. You're not following anything. Just write some code. There is very less chance of executing the project successfully. Yes or no? So that's the reason we need to follow something like software development life cycle. Definitely everyone would be aware of it. Okay. So in this SDLC, you will have phases called requirement gathering, analysis, then design, then development, testing, maintenance, all that will be there. Okay. Now, these phases can be implemented by using multiple methodologies, and two of the popular methodologies are waterfall model and agile methodology. Waterfall model and agile methodology. Okay. Now, waterfall model says you execute SDLC phases one after another. You completely finish one phase of the SDLC, then only you move to the next phase of the SDLC. That means you gather all the requirements, then you analyze all the requirements, then you design for all requirements like that. Now let's say there are 100 requirements and you are supposed to complete within 1 year. That means 12 months. Now, as per waterfall model, you take all 100 requirements and you try to execute it and you deliver it in the end of the year. Now, let's say at the 11th month, you go to the client and ask for a feedback. If client says, this is not what I have expected, I need these changes. What will happen? If those changes are small, not a problem. But if those changes are big, then you will not be in a position to accommodate those changes. Because you are in the end of the project and you might have spent all the money, whatever you got it from the client. This becomes an issue. So that is the reason most of the cases waterfall model is not going to work out. That's the reason we work on agile methodology. What agile says is don't take all requirements at a time, take few at a time. Like 5, 15, 10, whatever, and you execute it in short duration. That short duration can be 2 weeks, 3 weeks or 4 weeks. That we also call it as sprint. In that particular period, what exactly you do? You follow all the SDLC phases only for that requirements, only for 10, 15, 5 or whatever. Okay. This is important for everyone, irrespective of testing. Okay, even developers must know this. Okay, because we follow in projects this one only. Clear? Okay, now you execute this SDLC, meaning like these requirements only in that duration. Like at the end of that particular duration, you need to get take a feedback from the client. Getting the point? Now you design, you develop, you analyze, you design, you develop everything, you test everything, you do it in that particular period. Getting it? At the end of that particular period, you go to the client and ask for a feedback. If client says, this is not what I have expected, I need these changes, you can definitely accommodate those changes. The reason is you are not taking the feedback in the end of the project. You are taking the feedback every 2 weeks, right? You are not taking after the 11th month. Every 2 weeks, very often you are taking the feedback from the client. So that is the reason. It's like writing your semester exams instead of directly writing final exams, right? Semester is almost a six months, but here it's 2 weeks only, I'm saying. Correct? If client is not agreeing for any two or three requirements, you can have it in the next sprint. That's why Agile works. But what is the link between that and the testing is the question here. The problem here is I'm mentioning 2 weeks time. I'm mentioning 2 weeks time. Now in that particular 2 weeks, 4 days we don't work because weekends, right? Weekends we don't work. Then it becomes 10 days. Then 1 day is required to take a feedback from the client. Then it becomes 9 days. 1 day is required for integrating. Like everyone, if all the developers could need to integrate and do it. Then we'll have 8 days only. Half day is required for planning the sprint. What are the requirements we should be taking for this sprint? Then it becomes only 7.5 days. Correct, right? Within this 7.5 days, you'll have to deliver. Then manually, if you are testing it, what will happen? Take some time, no? You are not supposed to waste the time. So that's the reason you should automate it. You should automate it so that as soon as developer push the code, this particular script can be integrated something like CI and CD, we call it as CI process, continuous integration. Okay, heard about Jenkins and all? There you will integrate this particular code, CI CD. Correct, right? So this Selenium also you'll integrate there. That is the reason we need to know the automation. Automation is all about speed, right? Speed of the process. That's why we do this. That is the link between Agile and the automation. Understood? Yeah. So I was talking about automation testing. Now to do the automation testing, you have these many tools actually. Selenium, Test.io, okay, Test Studio, so many Code UI, all are there. Okay, but we are learning Selenium because it is an open source tool and it is used for web applications and it runs on various browsers also. That's the reason we use Selenium. But it's not that only Selenium you will be learning. To write the script, we will be using C#. We'll be using C#. Understood? Yeah. Then these are all the advantages of Selenium. I already explained it. Okay, it can support many of the languages. It can support Python, it can support Java, it can support C#. Now you are learning C#. And it can target to multiple OS platforms. It can be Windows, it can be Linux, does not matter. And it runs on multiple browsers as well. So that is the reason you are learning Selenium over here. Okay, fine. These are all the components of Selenium. Earlier people were using IDE, RC, WebDriver, RC and all, but now we will be using WebDriver. Now what's the difference between IDE, RC and WebDriver is IDE is like automatically it generates a script and all. Okay, so allows you to record the interactions and all, but custom modifications and all were becoming problem. So that's the reason people are not using the IDEs. Okay, fine. But this remote control, it was actually used RC. It was used by using JavaScript actually. Fine. So they were using JavaScript to automate it, but JavaScript does not support all the features. So that is the reason we are now learning which one? WebDriver. So it works with the native features of the browser, which is, what do you mean by browser? Internet Explorer, Chrome, you know all this, right? So It works with the native features of that particular browser. That's the reason we are using, or you will be learning, WebDriver. Understood? So Selenium WebDriver, you'll be using it. So C# and Selenium WebDriver, you'll be learning it. Then apart from that, everyone must learn, whether you are from Selenium or from .NET, you must learn Git. Why do you need Git is the question. Git is a version control system. Git is a version control system. Okay. Now, when you are, why do you need to use a version control system is the question. So developers are writing the code. At some point, you need to integrate the code. Now, the point here is, if your system get crashed, then you lose the code. That is a problem. And the second one is, at some point, you need to integrate the code. We are working on agile methodology. Now, I shouldn't disturb you saying that give me your code, and you should also you shouldn't disturb me saying that give me your code, right? That should not happen. So that is the reason what we need to do. We need to keep it in one server. I'll come to the repository. We'll need to keep it in one server. So when you keep it in one server, what will happen? If my system crashes, you can take the code from there, and other developer actually, without disturbing others, you can keep the code in that server. Correct, right? But there is a still problem. The problem is, manually I need to keep the code in the server. Takes some time, and you make mistakes. If there are 100 files, you change it, each and every file modification and pushing takes time manually, and you make mistakes. That is the reason, with the help of a tool, you do it. That we call it as version control system. That is Git. Understood? There are other tools also, but we will be learning Git. It is a distributed version control system. Understood? With the help of tool, we do it. Fine. Apart from that, for Selenium, guys, you will also learn Jenkins as well. But for the continuous integration and for continuous delivery or deployment, we need to learn Jenkins as well. Understood? So for Selenium C#, you'll learn, and Selenium WebDriver definitely you'll be learning. Git they'll be learning, and CI and CD part they'll also be learning how exactly it gets integrated in that. Okay, and if you need like more details and .NET topics and also the Selenium topics, you can check with the team. Okay, they will give you in detail information about each one of them. Okay, so now there are different types of packages. I don't want to mention all that here, but whoever is positively taking the course, that means till you get a job, we'll be supporting you. So generally what will happen, initially there will be a course, like for .NET it takes minimum 3 months. Okay, so Selenium also around 2.5 months. So now after that, once the course get over, we'll make you work on a real-time projects. Okay, then till you get a job, we'll be assisting you. Okay, that packages and all, you can talk to them. So if you are taking like positive way, till you get a job, you will be with us. You will be out of this institute only when you get a job. Okay, it's not like, yeah, your course got over. It's not about the course. For me, learning only the course gives you nothing. Yes or no? In the course, what do? You learn the concepts, but where do you apply? In projects, no? If you don't know how to do that, then you can't sustain in a project. Yes or no? That's why people take job supports and all. So I don't want you to get into that mess. Understood? Okay, so that is how it is. Now I am happy to take all your questions. Any questions? Let me stop the recording, then I'll take all your questions.